In this video, I'm going to show you how to use xTool Creative Space, which is the software that you'll use with any of the xTool cutting machines. I was sent an xTool M1 by the company in exchange for a review, and I have that full review on my blog. Totally honest with you about this laser cutter. What I love about the M1 is it has a laser cutter, but it also has a blade cutter if you want to do vinyl or paper or anything that you want to use like a Cricut or something for. You can do that in this machine as well as laser cutting. So let's dive into the software a little bit. I was honest in my blog review that the xTool Creative Space is a little bit limited. It doesn't have some of the features that I would like to see. I'm coming at this as a graphic designer, so I spend all day in Illustrator and other graphic design programs that are a lot more robust. And I'll show you how to design in those programs and bring it in here, as well as how to design directly in this program if you prefer. So when you first connect your device, you will see basically a picture of what's in your device right now. And then if you want to refresh that at any time, if you put the material in, there will be a refresh button up here. I had to turn mine off because it was making noise in the background, but it will refresh so that you can place your design directly on the material whenever you want it. It's going to be most accurate in the middle because that's focused towards the middle if you're not using the entire bed space. These kind of bars here that are haphazardly placed in there, those are these triangular prisms that come with the machine, and that allows you to lift your material off the bed a little bit so that there's more airflow underneath. And so when you're doing that, you'll just select that we are not raised or that we are raised triangular prism, and you'll see the camera will adjust to that depending on whether your piece is on the triangular prisms or on the flat bed surface. So there's a few ways to get designs into this program. So you can insert a line, rectangle, or circle. And there's also this whole shapes pattern, and you can click this line to get even more shapes. Tons of options here. And then there's XArt, which is something that you need to sign in to use. And it is kind of an AI generator. So you can use a prompt and select a different, each different style of artwork you want to see, and it will create that for you. Another option is designing in a different program and bringing over. There's two options for that. So if you do design something in Illustrator, for instance, you can just save as an SVG file. And I like to use artboards typically in case there's something on the other side, something outside my artboard. And I'll just title this ABC. I leave all those settings the same. And then you'll use image. We'll see ABC. And it will just bring these in. It's kind of hard to see them right now. Let's do engrave. Change them to cut. It is kind of hard to see them, but you can see them on, we will group them together, and I'll move them to the green layer so that you can actually see them. There we go. So we have all of this that'll come in ungrouped. You will want to outline your fonts in Illustrator or whatever program you're using before you save it as an SVG and bring it in. And then everything will come in automatically as score. So if you want to engrave it, it will fill in. If you want to cut it, you click here. And if you want to ignore it for some reason, like if you just want to do the outer cut first, you can just change this one to ignore. It will completely ignore that one, and it will cut this one. So output is doing whatever processing type you have here. Ignore is just ignoring that piece. Another option is to bring something in and trace it. So you can bring an image in such as these animals. We're going to scale it to fit the canvas. And then you can do some editing to the image beforehand if you wanted to like crop it so that it doesn't include the pig, for instance. We might lose a little bunny ear too. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, okay. So we'll crop that and we'll do our trace image. Save, and it traced that full image for us, and now these are ready to cut, engrave, score, whatever we want to do with them. So when you're not clicked on anything, you have your settings here. So this is where you can select what type of project you want to do. Typically you're going to do like laser flat or the blade cut, and then you can select your material. I have found these to be really helpful and to be pretty accurate. I've been using the craft paper for all different types of paper. I even used that for velvet and it worked out really well. You can change the thickness. You can select whether it's on the triangular prism or not. And then your processing is either auto planning or by layer. So auto planning is always going to engrave first, cut next, and then by layer we'll go from top to bottom in case you want to do that. The main reason I think you'd want to do that is to make sure it engraves first and cuts next, but that's how the auto planning automatically works. So I really like that. I think that's really helpful. And that's typically what I use it on. So one thing that I find is a little difficult about this is when you bring something in, it's often grouped together and you can't really ungroup it. So this is all seen as like one image and you can't ungroup it and you can't edit the vector paths. So if you did want to change something, move things around after this, you'd need to bring them in as separate elements. When we brought in the SVG file, all of those letters were separate elements and we could group and ungroup those. So I think that's a little bit more helpful than bringing something in as like a JPEG image and then tracing it. It's more helpful to bring it in as an SVG and all the elements will be separated. You also can't like click into this and edit the vector paths. That's something that's a little confusing to me and I hope that they bring that in a future edition. So if you want to do any editing, you need to make sure it's final before you bring it in to this space, or if you brought it in as an individual piece, you could then like move it around, but you still won't be able to like edit the vector paths. So even if we bring in this SVG, we still aren't able to move this again to green. We still aren't able to edit those vector paths or anything. It still needs to be final before it comes in. So if you want to add text, it's kind of interesting. It all makes sense. I'm just going to type my name here. If you did want it to not be caps, then you have to retype it. You can't switch between cases, which I don't love. You can change the typeface to anything that's already installed on your computer. You don't have to do anything with that, which is really nice. For instance, if I was cutting this out of vinyl, I would want to make it a little bit thicker because some of these like thin parts are not going to work out. So you could use the outline feature to do that. And you can change the value there, but you see how we've made a thicker outline. And now those are two separate paths. The main issue I have with this is just that you can't bring in those inner paths. So I can't ungroup this. I can't vectorize this in any way. I can't edit the vector pieces. So it's basically impossible for me to select just this inner path and bring it over here so that it still looks like an A when I cut it out. So that's one of those things where if you wanted it to have a stroke or something, you'd need to add that in Adobe Illustrator or a different platform and then bring it in here as an SVG. So I think it's good for a lot of quick designs, but if you want to do a lot of work to the characters or to the images that you're bringing in, then you are a little limited there. And then if you do want to customize any of the cuts, if you find that your material is kind of unique, it's not exactly craft paper, then you can actually change the settings for an individual section by just selecting it and changing them here. So you can update the power, the speed, and how many passes it's going to do. It's still going to assume the material is craft paper or whatever you have selected, but you are able to change those individual settings here. And then I'll just add another shape here so that you can see some of the options. So when we have multiple options, again, this one, since we traced it all together, is going to be viewed as one. This is going to be its own individual shape. So these we can group and ungroup. We can change the alignment. We can arrange them. So one's forward, one's backward. We can combine them, reflect them. We can change the position and size and rotation, etc. So we can do a lot of these things with each of the individual elements, but just as a reminder, if you bring something in as an image, it's going to be seen as all one element, even if there's a bunch of different elements on there. So I hope this video gave you a decent overview to the xTool Creative Space. I have my full review that I'll link the blog post for in the description of this video of my M1. I love that this machine has a blade and a laser. I love how easy it is to use. I love bringing things in from Illustrator into this program, and I really like how portable and simple this machine is as far as laser cutters go. There are a few things that I don't love about it. Probably the main thing is this creative space, because I find it to be a little bit limiting compared to the programs that I'm in every day. Thanks for bearing with me today. I have a cold, so I know my voice sounds a little bit weird, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the xTool or Creative Space, because I did find it hard to locate any great tutorials on using the software, and I wanted to provide some information for you that might be helpful as you dive in. If you're interested in checking out xTool, definitely check out that blog post with my full review of all their information. They do have a lot of other types of lasers as well outside of the M1, so I'm sure you can find the one that's right for you. The blog will have some helpful hints on that as well. So definitely check that out. Let me know what questions you have about xTool or the M1 specifically, and I would love to keep teaching you about these awesome cutters. Thanks, everyone.